There's no point in me pretending I can get out reviews quickly. Even the simplest of videos seems to take me months, meaning every review ends up being a long-term review by default. But there's advantages to this, for me, like more sleep. And for you, a marginally less tired-looking person, I can cover things like warranty replacements and return policy, as a random example that surely won't appear later. So here's a long-term review of the Ray-Ban Meta sunglasses. So the main reason I use these is BTS, behind the scenes. Basically, having a way to contextually show the videos I'm taking in video form. That is, without doing crazy stuff like adding a magic arm and a 360 camera or a second tripod setup off to the side. Sure, that might be better, but not less fun. That's annoying. I also use it for incidental videos.
So I just wanted to call your attention to a couple of little scenes here. As you can see, I've zoomed in on that snake. You can get an idea of the details. This is relatively low light, so you can really see just how blurry it gets as the shutter speed lowers. You've got no control over that. This is a low light on stage scenario. As you can see, it's not that bad. I think definitely usable. The crowd has no details, and you can see grain sort of creeping in. But I think as long as you've got the stage light, the shutter speed is high enough that you don't have too much motion blur. While I'm jogging here, you can see that the stabilization is pretty jumpy. Again, here in this low light scene, you can really see the smearing from the stabilization and the low shutter speed. This shows you the grain in low light. I don't think it's too bad, but it's, very much mobile phone level. Here's a high dynamic range scene. As you can see, it doesn't fix its exposure very fast from the low light to the highlight, so you get this blowout. But then again, if it was a really jarring exposure change, it would probably be another downside as well. So I'm not really sure how it's metering. This scene kind of shows the dynamic range in a nice kind of low lit scenario. I think it's relatively smooth on the bike. I do like it for this. There's a low light scenario here. You can see the grain and the color noise, the amount of flaring that you get through these little lenses when the sun, so you'd think this would be a nice flary shot, but the flare is not really pretty. Honestly, you're probably thinking I'm just shitting on the video from a high height, but probably the thing to notice is that it is really smooth most of the time and does a really good job as you're moving your head around, as I do a lot, and keeping everything kind of watchable and not vomit inducing. So I think for these FPV shots and the purpose that I'm using it for, I think it actually does a really good job.
Big downside that I'm sure everyone's covered is that the fact that it's vertical video and 29.97 frames per second. I also use it for incidental photos. Here's some of my favorites.
This scene of some flowers, I do kind of like the light here, but as you can see, the detail is a little bit smeary and jagged on close-up. You can really see that smoothing. Here's a sunset that I captured from my bike while going past. You can see motion blur in the corners. Heavily cropped it because it's just very difficult to frame shot. They're just sort of showing you the color depth. As you can see, just really kind of smeary details. Looks okay from a distance. They're just sort of showing you the dynamic range. The details aren't terrible, even though this is a relatively low light scene, and HDR allows me to capture that sky in the foreground without it being blown out. More landscape scenes. As you can see, the details here are just a blurry smear. You're always going to be stuck in a wide aspect because cropping in really just removes too much detail. I actually quite like this shot, edited it to give it sort of a filmic look, but as you can see, there's quite a bit of color noise when I've pushed it too far. I'm trying to get around the lack of details by just adding a bit of glow and grain to give it that happy film snappy hipstery thing. Hence why I'm also shooting the corners of old cars. This shows where, see that bit of chromatic aberration? I'm almost sure that's actually just a bit of gunk on the lens, but as you can know, it's a very small lens and it's on a greasy part of your body. Well, at least my face is greasy. So that's a bit of a setback and it's going to be hard to check until after the fact. More hipstery car setups with grain. This is a waterfall setup, gives you an idea of the shutter speed that's involved. You can see it's actually quite slow, slow enough to have the water be a little bit blurry. So a 60th, it's saying here. In fact, going through all of these, it tends to be a 60th or 120th based on the scene. So that's kind of interesting. At 120th, you can see that the water's quite sharp here, although the details are still quite smeary. This is one of those times I really wish that I could crop in a bit more or add a bit more resolution. As you can see, I've cropped in from this far. I didn't want to go any further to lose the detail. Those kites are tens of meters long, but you just don't get an idea of the scale because I'm too far away and I can't get closer. Mobile phone style glare here, not really fun looking lens flares. A little bit of diffusion on these kind of hot spots around the car. And again, I didn't frame it right because I can't quite tell where I'm looking. More flare from the corner. Again, it might just be a little bit of dirt on the lens, or it might just be one of the things that kind of goes wrong when you have these really tiny lenses. This is to show how close the focus is. This is a paint drip that's probably about 30 centimeters from my face. As you can see, it's still relatively sharp, but you know, the details really aren't there. As you can see, more drunk Dutch angles. I've tried to straighten that up. The details not too bad there, I guess, because the shutter speed is reasonably high. ISO 5000 and shutter speed at 25th of a second. So it can take quite slow shutter speeds quite stably. Like it's, I guess, principally quite sharp. You know, this was just in a street light, so as you can imagine, really dark. Not a lot of detail present, but I guess usable if you need to capture something to remember later. Don't know if it's going to be any artistic capture being done here. Standard hipster gas station at ISO 2000. A lot of noise creeping in here. So I think above ISO 1000, you're really getting a lot of noise present, even with the noise reduction at the edges. And as you can see, the dynamic range has reached its limit. The sign is blown out, even though it's attempted to keep the rest of the gas station exposed properly. And then a truly low light shot, just to show that's my son, not a river monster. As you can see, detail's really gone away here. I wouldn't expect a phone camera to really do well here. I just wanted to show this is ISO 5000, and yeah, we're really at the limit what this camera can do. So if you're taking photos with sunglasses at night, you're a bit weird, and therefore I don't consider this to be a really realistic use case.
So even though we know that Meta AI isn't on the level of ChatGPT or Claude, the comparison to Siri is still so favorable. I can't help but like the AI, and I mean, especially when you're, say, hands-free in a car. If you're a dad getting asked unlimited questions on a long drive, Siri will let you down every time, whereas Meta AI is good enough to answer all sorts of dumb questions. Hey Meta, how many liters capacity is a rocket ship? Hey Meta, but how big is a rocket ship? Like, what's the, say a SpaceX rocket ship, how large is it in volume? 145,000 liters. Although there is the annoying way that the sunglasses will steal audio. They recently added live translations as well, which I thought was brilliant, but it doesn't work well. I thought I'd do a quick test.
Okay, now you can look at me, it probably works better. Right. Bonjour chérie. J'apprécie que tu fasses ça pour moi. C'est vraiment stupide. Et que tu élèves les enfants et nettoies la maison pendant que je réalise des vidéos pour un public de 10 personnes. I've written something in English. I'm using Google Translate to put it in French, and then the phone is going to determine whether it makes sense. All right.
Ici que tu fasses ça pour moi, c'est vraiment stupide. Et que tu élèves les enfants et nettoies la maison pendant que je réalise des vidéos pour un public de 10 personnes.
It's really stupid and you're raising children and cleaning up the house while I make videos for a 10-person audience.
Yeah?
The cost of around 450 Australian dollars is relatively expensive, but as a backup content creation tool for BTS and even for social video, they pretty much pay for themselves. And in my use case of just wearing them as sunglasses, I find the 4 hour or so battery life to be perfectly adequate. I can understand why you'd feel shorter if you're wearing them as corrective glasses, but I don't wear sunglasses for more than 4 hours a day. And unexpectedly with the camera lenses and AI and stuff, the actual most used function I have is headphones while riding bikes. I initially thought I'd use them to snap bad drivers who cut me off or hurled abuse, but the unexpected benefit is they serve the same function as open ear or bone conducting headphones that you can actually ride while safely hearing everything that's happening around you. They even smartly increase the volume while you're getting passed by large trucks, which is of course all the time. And when you're moving fast, you don't hear the loud rush of wind like you do with AirPods Pro 2, which is a really unexpected benefit. But riding them on bikes may be a downside, because after a few months of riding them on bikes, I had this issue.
While I've been filming this review of the Ray-Ban Meta, my microphone I've realized has completely gone kaput midway through. I'm now going to have to take these back to the store, so I guess my warranty return is going to be part of the review, unfortunately. I will say that I contacted Ray-Ban online and they said I have to go back to the store, so Meta is no help here. Not everyone's going to have the same experience, I gather, with a return.
Now, I can't confirm or deny that sweating on this little mic in the nose bridge was a factor, especially if you involve sunscreen, but it might have been. I can say that I was glad I purchased through a retailer that had its own warranty return policy that got you a repair quickly, because going through the Ray-Ban website was not helpful. And when looking for fixes, I couldn't help but see a number of people who've also had an arm snap on the black pair. I don't baby mine, and I've not had that problem at all, but it's worth considering. So, in short, I do actually love them and basically stop wearing other sunglasses. Perhaps the very worst thing is that Ray-Ban Wayfarer is a very ex-millennial glasses shape, so no Zoomer would probably feel right wearing them. Good.